The United States during the 1920s saw numerous innovations including the automobile, electricity, radios and movies, and the airplane. Largely because of these technological advances, the United States economy was able to prosper during the Roaring Twenties, while other nations were struggling with the aftermath of the First World War. Advances in technology during the 1920s led to the burgeoning of the upper and middle class in the United States due to increased productivity and leisure time. However, this progress also created a large class divide between the poor and the rich in America. Electricity was being used by the end of the 1800s, but did not reach most households in America. However, by 1930, 68.2% of households were run by electricity. Electricity was a source of power behind heating, indoor plumbing, washers, refrigerators, and vacuums. These household appliances greatly improved American life. Women, who often spend most of their waking hours taking care of the home, were able to cut their work by nearly one-fifth of the time because of appliances like the vacuum and washers. These allowed them to have leisure time when they could get an education, listen to the radio, or find work. Electricity played a large role in manufacturing as well. Large factories depended on electricity for power for machines. The increase in productivity allowed for the mass production of automobiles, household appliances, radios, and eventually planes. These innovations all bolstered the middle and upper class in America. Henry Ford's Model T was the first automobile that was affordable for the large majority of American people. Ford's usage of the assembly line and interchangeable parts allowed for the mass production of the Model T while still keeping it affordable. The Model T became incredibly popular not only for its price, but also its durability and low maintenance. Before the Model T, most Americans traveled by horse and carriage. This mean of transportation created a large social gap because most Americans had to be able to buy both a horse and a carriage to be able to travel around. However, with the creation of the Model T, the rich were not the only Americans that were able to travel efficiently. Ford's goal was to democratize the automobile, which he fulfilled. Ford's use of welfare capitalism, which provided his workers 5-day, 40-hour work weeks, as well as a then unprecedented $5 a day. Ford's treatment of workers set the tone for other companies. Health insurance and profit-sharing plans were given to workers, which resulted in a massive decrease of labor unions. The assembly line and interchangeable parts were all production techniques used by Henry Ford in the making of the Model T. These techniques, coupled with electricity, were able to profoundly change the way products were made in the U.S. Mass production ran rampant in America during the 1920s. An important piece of technology in the 1920s was the radio. It was a breakthrough in communication for many Americans. First, breaking news began to be broadcasted. This quickly led to the broadcast of sports, advertisements, and shows. By 1929, 10 million homes contained radios. The effects of radios were extensive. Radios became many people's favorite pastime, and as well as their main source of information. Americans found more spare time and were able to not only focus on work, but also they could focus on social aspects of life. American culture and ideas were spread throughout the U.S. and not only in cities. One negative social consequence of radios was that ideas that were broadcasted met the ears of millions of Americans that used the radio as their primary source of information, meaning that most people believed what they heard on the radio. One such idea was racism. The show Amos and Andy contained racial stereotypes of African Americans. Other races such as Italians and Jews also received similar treatment. Invention was the creation of movies. The movie industry moved to Hollywood, where it saw international success. Many of the effects of movies were similar to that of the radio. Movies led to more leisure time for Americans, as more and more moviegoers flooded into theaters. Through radios and movies, many sports figures and talk show hosts were able to gain fame. Americans began to emulate behaviors and actions portrayed in movies. This led to the growth and spread of American ideas. Movie stars' speech and dress became extremely popular with the advent of movies. However, similarly with radios, racial stereotypes existed. While the radio and the invention of movies led to the increase in diversification of American culture, racial stereotypes were also spread. The airplane was invented by Wilbur and Orville Wright in 1903. Although planes were not used commercially until 1920, the Wright brothers' model was used to inspire other pilots and innovators to make even better airplanes. Eventually, by 1920, planes could participate in wars, break aviation records, and fly commercial flights, such as the 23-minute flight along the coast of Florida. Airplanes, similar to the automobile, drastically decreased travel time. Mail and cargo could be easily shipped across the United States extremely efficiently. Prices for commercial flights were at first only affordable for the elite, but eventually became accessible for middle-class consumers as well. Planes played a large role in the military as well. By World War I, airplanes had gained popularity and were used in the military. Planes were primarily used for reconnaissance and bombing. Airplanes supported the American infantry and navy. Airplanes uh, not only improved transportation of mail and goods, but also bolstered the United States' power in the world. However, class divide came with a newfound productivity. Men who controlled factories that had large outputs, like Henry Ford, began to have more wealth than ever before. Class division, which created problems for the United States in its previous history, began to resurface with the blossoming of the middle and upper class, while the rural areas suffered in the 1920s and the Great Depression. Rural areas in America did not fare as well as the urbanized districts. Prices of cash crops lowered after World War I due to less markets for cash crops. Farmers' problems were also seen in America during the Gilded Age, where populace protested over hard money and fluctuating crop prices. The lives of Americans were greatly affected by new technology during the Roaring Twenties. Technology greatly augmented the upper and middle class in the United States due to the mass production of goods and products, like the automobile, which further increased efficiency and leisure time. However, this led to class division between the upper and lower class.